Hi, this is Dr. Bharadwaj. Today we will discuss on the topic define primary and secondary data. Primary data, secondary data. Okay, what makes primary data? What makes secondary data? And with examples, we are going to take two examples. One is for clinical practice, and the second example we are going to take from preclinical or clinical research example. So these are the four topics we are going to discuss now. So define primary and secondary data. It is very simple. How data is classified based on the source of data, from where the data is coming. Based on that, the data can be divided into two. One is primary data and the next one is secondary data. So what is primary data? This is first collected data. If someone collects the data for the first time, that is known as primary data, and it is used for the current project. First collected, current project. It can be by an individual or an organization for a specific purpose. Okay, there should be four criteria. It has to be collected for the first time, and it has to be used in the current project. It can be collected either by an individual or an organization for a specific purpose. If the collection of data is for a specific purpose, this is known as primary data. And what is secondary data? Secondary data is previously collected data. This data is not collected for the first time. This is already collected data. The data is reused. Already collected data will be reused, okay, by an individual or an organization for different purpose. Again, it can be used by an individual or an organization for different purpose, not for the purpose for which it is already collected. That is known as secondary data. Now we will find the differences. In this chart you can see primary data is collected for the first time. Secondary data is previously collected data. Primary data is currently used in the project which you are doing currently. The secondary data is already collected for a different project and it is reused. The primary data is for a specific purpose, and the secondary data we use the same data, the primary data as secondary data when it is used for different purpose, then it is known as secondary data. Now we will check this up with an example. Okay, so here I have given two examples. One is from clinical practice, one is from preclinical research. Okay, so what happens? For example, a doctor, okay, a doctor in a hospital is collecting systolic and diastolic blood pressure for treating the patient. Here, when it is collected for the first time. Okay, the doctor is collecting systolic and diastolic blood pressure for the first time. Okay, he is using this data. The doctor or the doctor in the hospital is using this data for treating the patient. What is the purpose? What is the specific purpose? He is collecting systolic and diastolic data to be used to treat the patient. For the current patient he is using, that is known as primary data. So this data already exists in the hospital or in the clinic. Then what happened? One PG student is doing a thesis on blood pressure. Okay, and he is not collecting the data of the patients first time. Whatever the doctor has previously collected and stored in the hospital database, he is again using it. So he is using the systolic and diastolic data, okay, previously collected data from an hospital case sheet by the PG student for a different purpose, yes, for his thesis. So he is reusing already collected data for different purpose. The purpose here is thesis. Okay, this is the difference between primary data and secondary data with clinical practice example. Now we will check an example with clinical research, especially on the clinical preclinical research, animal trial. This is actually original clinical trial that is done. In preclinical research, what happens is I have seen a case where cerebrospinal fluid of a wolf, it is an animal, cerebrospinal fluid of an wolf is collected and it is analyzed for biochemistry values by a professor to check the accuracy of the device. Okay, a professor at a hospital or a institution has invented a device to calculate the biochemistry values of CSF. cerebrospinal fluid. He has taken the wolves as the research subject. He has drawn the cerebrospinal fluid of the wolves and he has used that for testing the device, whether the device is working correctly or not. This is the primary data. Okay, and secondary data, how it is used. The same CSF fluid values already collected by this researcher is used by another researcher. What he has done is he was trying to do a trial on autism, especially on the social behavior. So whether how socially interactive, how emotional the wolves are, he is trying to test. And what he has done is he has taken the value of vasopressin in the cerebrospinal fluid. This doctor has collected all those details, but this doctor has taken only cerebrospinal fluid values for vasopressin and compared the levels of vasopressin and social interactivity. What he found is, if the vasopressin is low, social interaction is low. If the vasopressin is high, social interaction is high. Here the values are collected for testing the device primarily or first time by the different person. Here same values are reused for different purpose by different individual or different organization. So these are the two best examples for primary data and secondary data for both clinical practice and preclinical and clinical research. Thank you.